Recently, a group of Russian journalists toured America, sponsored by the Library of Congress and facilitated by the International Visitors Council of Los Angeles. Ironically, their visit came at a time when the city of Los Angeles, by default, is about to shut down the public access channels so that independent voices will be silenced. Full Disclosure has long been an ardent supporter of the public's right to be heard on the channels that belong to the public.
Coming from an environment where the media is very carefully screened and controlled, these Russian journalists were especially curious about alternative media, such as Full Disclosure. Host Leslie Dutton explained Full Disclosure's role as the news behind the news.
So, in 1992, when we started Full Disclosure,
в 92 году, когда мы начали нашу сеть Full Disclosure,
we did so in order to criticize
мы это все создали для того, чтобы быть в состоянии покритиковать
the government, local government,
местное правительство, местное управление
for policies that were unfair,
относительно некоторых политических действий, которые мы считали несправедливыми.
And creating a dangerous situation in our communities.
И которые создают среди нашего населения.
They ask questions about everything from how we select topics to how we produce our program.
You know, they say that prevention is better than cure, and many programs show, let's say, have discussions or have arguments about those issues that already came into life. They didn't prevent anything, they just followed up whatever happened. Do you try to foresee some events, and do you try to do the discussion before this action or event happens?
All the time. All the time. As a matter of fact, we're always ahead of the curve. Always.
Full Disclosure has produced several programs identifying looming potential disasters. One of our most popular programs was the series on bonded indebtedness.
The biggest fiscal issue facing the state of California and local governments throughout the state.
What is this biggest fiscal issue?
From a financial standpoint, just what we know right now, and I want to caveat my comments by saying we don't know the true extent of the liability. It's going to get a lot worse. $130 billion is the latest estimate of hard numbers, even before you factor in health benefits. That's for state and local in the state of California. Underfunded, unfunded liabilities. That is 3 times the total amount of outstanding debt, total debt issued by the state of California. Triple. All the bonds.
Keith Richmond explains that the interest always doubles the cost of the bonds.
Essentially, for any bond, it's going to cost double what the bond is. So for $40 billion, the total cost is going to end up being about $80 billion between the principal and interest.
What that translates into is that for every citizen in the state, you would be looking at an incremental tax burden of somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 or $400, which means it would translate in a typical household of 4 to something like $1,200 to $1,600 a year of burden in terms of taxation.
$1,200 to $1,600 every year for every California household, just to pay for retirement benefits of government employees.
It's the voters who are making these choices. They are choosing to be able to line their pockets today with commitments from our treasuries so that they can have prosperity today at the expense of somebody else in the future. And ultimately, it will happen that we sell our rights away so that we can live at a certain standard today.
One of the questions they ask concern topical news, such as the upcoming elections.
Do you cover in any way today's presidential race?
Not really.
Вообще-то нет.
We mostly concentrate on issues and not on personalities.
В основном мы занимаемся.
Instead of duplicating the strained efforts of mainstream media, who are always looking for something new and interesting about the presidential candidates, Full Disclosure explored the policy of how America investigates the presidency.
It was a mistake to take all of that evidence and send the referral to Congress about the possible impeachment of Clinton?
No, I don't. I think that I was obligated to do it under the statute, and the statute in that respect was sensible. That is, we should share the information that we've been able to glean, and then let Congress come to its judgment.
I think the independent counsel statute was an abomination. It flew in the face of our history, which during the first 200 years of this nation saw responsible attorneys general of integrity and judgment recognize those few occasions when the Department of Justice could not handle a criminal investigation.
I was reminded about the special freedom that we have here in America when the journalist suggested I should be fearful about reprisals for airing programs critical of government policies.
Is there any power, political power, or whatever, against which you wouldn't go, let's say?
No, we are fearless.
Но мы считаем себя бесстрашными.
In fact, Leslie has a long history of questioning police policies on full disclosure. She has repeatedly aired a sequence where she claims to have caught the top cop, L.A. District Attorney Steve Cooley, in an apparent lie, where he allegedly covered up criminal violations during the notorious Belmont Learning Center disaster.
Terrible project. Let's indict somebody. How about, let's see if there's any evidence of a law being broken within the statute of limitations.
So when Tony asked me to join and help out in any way I could, I was enthusiastic. I said, finally, we're going to get justice.
Well, I guess I better just say that we've interviewed Steve Cooley, and we have a video clip of him which basically says he's saying that he wasn't given names, that the Inspector General and Mr. Patchett did not name names, and they didn't ask for indictments.
The people say indict someone, they don't want to name who, they don't want to say what charge. And if any of your previous guests, the Inspector General or Mr. Patchett, are willing to come out with the names and the charge they would have filed, I'd be very interested. They were both given ample opportunity to do so because they were both part of this broad-ranging Belmont Task Force investigation, which, not because of them necessarily, but they did contribute to the process, resulted in a very thoroughgoing analysis of all theories of criminal liability.
Well, it was my understanding that Mr. Patchett, as head of the ad hoc Belmont Task Force, did recommend indictment and the grand jury.
Well, no, he didn't.
He did not.
He did not. The grand jury was used to obtain evidence. And
do you know that to be a factual statement?
Those are simply false statements. I don't know why Mr. Cooley would want to misrepresent the record. The Inspector General's letters I signed, so I have personal knowledge of who we named. They were directed originally to Mr. Garcetti, but when Mr. Garcetti was defeated by Mr. Cooley, all of that information was made available. I was in the room. I saw the boxes. I saw what was available to the district attorney. I saw it on the tables in front of Mr. Cooley. All that information was there.
Did you actually name names?
We named names. We named specific individuals. We named company names. We were very clear. We laid out the evidence page by page, document by document. Anyone with a grade school education could have followed our approach. I think it was a political decision not to prosecute.
Apparently, District Attorney Cooley wasn't pleased by our program. The office of the district attorney sent 2 investigators out here to intimidate us. They drove all the way out here and knocked on our door. They presented their badges as a show of force to impress me with their power and authority. Much to their surprise, we questioned their authority and abuse of power. I told him to come on in, and I had him sit here and his partner right here. I asked him, what is this all about? And they said, well, we want to know some answers to some questions regarding the gang conference. And I said, why? And they said, because we want to know who's behind it. And I said, well, is there something wrong? And they said, no. And I said, well, is there something illegal? They said, no. And I said, then will you please tell me why 2 DA investigators have come all the way to here to talk to me about our gang conference? And that really upset me. I said, I want to know who sent you out here. and they wouldn't respond. I said, I want to see your ID again. I want to know who you are. He finally produced this badge that he showed me. He is investigator Mario Avon from the Commerce Auto Fraud Division, of all things. His partner refused. I called the supervisor for the investigators, and I wanted to know who sent them out here and why. And they weren't announced. They didn't call to make an appointment. They didn't show me any authorization of why they were here to question me. And I thought this was highly irregular and intimidating. Well, the supervisor didn't seem to know anything about it. I have learned that we need to stand up to public officials, especially when they abuse their power and authority. Unlike the former Soviet Union, we live in a country where we're supposedly ruled by laws and not by men. Apparently, our fortitude impressed our visitors from Russia. I was touched by their words.
The visit by these Russian journalists provided a unique opportunity for the independent Full Disclosure production to bond with the plight of these journalists. They yearn to challenge the authorities like Full Disclosure does, and if they had the freedom, they want to inform their fellow citizens like Full Disclosure does to improve the quality of life for their people.
I am very, very happy to find myself at an independent network like this. This is a very open and sincere conversation. And the problems that the people face regarding some authorities. In my city, in the city of Novosibirsk in Siberia,
нет сейчас ни одной телекомпании, которая могла бы себе позволить
идти против властей. There is not a single television company that can allow itself afford to go against the local authorities.
Ни государственных, ни частных.
Neither government-run nor privately owned. Because despite the fact that I am a chief editor of a newspaper, and actually I am building that newspaper, I wouldn't dare to run against the authorities. A few years ago, such company did exist. It was closed down. It was a big scandal. The program was very popular. So those people also tried to tell the truth. Lately, I am thinking more and more whether it is possible for one person to change the status quo, the state of affairs that's already in. I am really thinking about the role of a single personality in the life of society. It's evident that when people are together, it is possible to change the state of affairs. I am just asking myself, what can one person do? And today, I could plainly see what one person can.
Сейчас здесь я вижу, что вот в Америке это существует до сих пор.
I see that here in America it's blooming nowadays. Not in my place.
Я желаю вам выстоять вот в этом кризисе.
I really wish you to stand firm in a certain crisis that you are experiencing now.
Надеюсь, что, может быть, когда-нибудь у нас появятся такие люди, как вы.
I really want to hope that in our country, in the near future, we will have such courageous people as you are. From the bottom of my heart, I want to wish you to remain as firm as you've been. I am very pleased to see what one person can do. Because all of us are single personalities here. I represent a newspaper who can communicate with authorities on an equal basis. However, we have to be highly careful. And after seeing you, I want to join my colleagues, what they said. How willing we are to keep in touch with you and fight by your side. Thank you so much. And thank you so much that you found time